Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Computer Chess. It's the latest film from Andrew Bujalski, who is one of the bigger mumblecore directors. He did pretty much the first mumblecore Funny Ha Ha, and this is his latest film, which isn't really a mumblecore film. This is him kind of breaking out of that genre. A computer chess competition that's being held in a hotel over one weekend, where computer programs that computer programmers made from various institutions or by themselves play chess with one another to see which one has the best computer chess program. The film has a very assortment of characters in this kind of ensemble comedy. This is a real ensemble film where you have people from MIT and Cal Arts and the first woman who's ever been in the competition, and then you have Michael Papa George, who doesn't have a room. He thought he had a room, but it turns out he doesn't, so he's just walking around the hotel because I guess he can't get another room from another hotel. He has to stay in the hotel for whatever reason. There's random cats who are walking along the hotel. The announcer and kind of the MC of the computer chess tournament, who's kind of hosting the thing through these various cameramen who are using a Sony AVC 3260 black and white camera, which actually predates what's going on in the film. This film takes place in the early 80s, at a time when having a computer chess tournament between two computers seemed a very odd and futuristic thing. When computers weren't necessarily cool, not everybody had a computer. You know, some offices did, a lot of offices really had typewriters. Consumer camera at the time probably would have been better quality-wise, but Andrew Bujalski is kind of going for something aesthetically pleasing, and I think it works with the theme of this kind of ancient technology, seeing a video camera that looks like video. A lot of these mumblecore film and low-budget films that are shot on video now look gorgeous because you have such good consumer cameras now. Any low-budget film can look as good, I mean, theoretically, I guess, as a big-budget Hollywood film. So this is a way to get away from that. And Andrew Bujalski is someone who usually shoots on 16mm. He decided to shoot it on this outdated video camera, which gives the film kind of an older look to it. It almost feels like you discovered a weird, low-budget comedy from the early 80s. In a lot of ways I like this film. I think what this film is doing is very creative. I don't think Andrew Bujalski's really worked with such an ensemble. He's usually kind of following a certain protagonist. I think that's kind of the cliche of the mumblecore genre. You're following like a distinct protagonist. I wouldn't really call this mumblecore. I think he's using the aesthetics that he's had as a director in an auteur way, not in a genre way. I don't think he's messing with genre. There's certain, I think, mumblecore films like Cold Weather that definitely are using the genre and making kind of a mumblecore mystery. This isn't making a mumblecore movie about this computer chess tournament. I think he's using his style that he's cultivated from Funny Ha Ha. I like seeing a long begone era of how computer programmers used to be, and how now we look at films about computers and it looks sexy, it looks cool, these guys look like normal, relatable guys. And these are real nerds with pocket protectors and big glasses and things like that. He definitely plays off that. Bujalski has an interesting way about the character, especially with the one woman who's played by Robin Schwartz, the only woman programmer there, who's kind of treated like a mythical being. They don't really have much interaction with women. Since this is the early 80s, you have some leftoverness of the 70s with this group of people, a togetherness group, and their kind of new agey 70s thing is kind of confronting with the computers that will eventually take over in the future. They're trying to find deeper meaning in all this, and it's kind of laughable to look at now, but at the time people were very fearful of computers, thinking of it in a 1984 way, seeing it as a menace. The hippies believed in kind of a rawness and anti-technologiness, and that this is obviously very pro-technology, and I think it's an interesting juxtaposition to have, and kind of showing the kind of morals of the time and the ideas of the time. Bujalski's definitely capturing what it was like with computers at that time, and basically being a period piece, but at the same time he has kind of an Altman ensemble way about this film, with all the mumblecore ums and ums and the naturalistic dialogue that he has in this. Reminds me of how Altman kind of was known for his overlapping dialogue, which seemed more realistic. This film has a lot of that, and it kind of reminds me a lot of Altman in like Nashville or something. There's no real central character. There's certain ones we focus on more than others. This is a really interesting film, and probably one of the better kind of modest, smaller, kind of church mouse almost in tone little movies. The thing about the aesthetics of this film, and it's interesting to have such an odd, different camera like a tube video camera in a time when video is trying to look more pristine and more crisp and more cleaner, and he's doing the exact opposite, kind of rejecting what a lot of these low-budget kind of dramas have done recently. And it's an interesting idea for Bujalski to do that, and it's having the aesthetics kind of mirror what's going on in the film with these outdated computers and what it was like to have this kind of computer chess competition at the time. And I think it works aesthetically with the film. It kind of makes this film this weird oddity of a movie that it was shot like this at this time. And it definitely looks like a film that could have been shot this way at this time. But I think the aesthetics of it, at first, I think it's really endearing and it really works for the film. And I like this film for the most part, but at the end of like the third act, when it gets more surreal, that really didn't work for me. I kind of would have liked him to have maybe simpler ambitions towards the end and just go with the aesthetics he was going on with the rest of the film. I get what he was doing with the ending and having this surreal ending, almost like a 2001 kind of ending that some of these low-budget films would do at the time. Not that it's similar to 2001, but the idea is kind of there. And it's not that I don't like surrealism or anything like that. I just felt it came out of nowhere. It was a huge tonal shift and it didn't really work for me. And it kind of makes it more about the aesthetics than everything else. And I think the rest of the film is kind of showing you it's more about the aesthetics. It's not just this film that was shot on this old video camera and we're doing kind of a different thing about older computers. And it's a lot more interesting than that I think for the majority of the film, really. But then when you get towards the end of the film, it becomes mainly about the aesthetics. And that's a lot emptier artistically, it's a lot less interesting, and it's kind of falling in the trap that you think it probably will fall into when you hear about a film like this. Although I love the rest of the film. And I understand even what he's doing with the aesthetics at the end. I completely understand what's going on. I just didn't think it worked tonally with the film. And I like Andrew Bujalski. I love funny haha. I've seen Mutual Appreciation. I didn't see Beeswax, unfortunately. He's pretty much going to be the leading filmmaker coming out of the mumblecore movement, although I liked Aaron Katz quite a bit with Cold Weather. And I was actually thinking about why I found Cold Weather a more entertaining film, a film I've seen several times. But I think this film is aesthetically smarter, and I think there's a lot more thought behind it than Cold Weather. Whereas Cold Weather is taking the mumblecore genre and making a mystery with it. This is going far beyond the genre and doing more. There's a lot more thought behind it. There's definitely an interesting thought process behind this film and the aesthetic choices behind this film. But I think Cold Weather is more entertaining and more fun, and a film I enjoy and I'm entertained by. They're very different films, but the main reason I'm comparing them is they're definitely moving forward with the genre and moving forward with aesthetics of a genre. Bujalski started that genre and he's moving forward with those aesthetics to a different film and doing something with those aesthetics, those mumblecore aesthetics. Letting the aesthetics overpower your movie kind of hurts it, but I think for the most part this is a good movie. Aesthetics are important and it really makes this film kind of special in a way. This film's kind of a modest, smaller film, and he has bigger, loftier ambitions than the film itself, and that eventually kind of swallows the film in the end, but for the most part he contains them and he makes it a really interesting movie about these kind of odd, nerdy characters. It's like a nerd movie made by nerds, and for the most part that works, but it kind of goes off into like this surreal ending that I just didn't particularly like and I didn't think particularly worked, and it was a huge tonal shift, unfortunately. In a way, Computer Chess starts to eat its own tail towards the end, but for the most part it's a really entertaining, different kind of movie because it's shot in such a weird aesthetic way with this odd tube video camera. Aesthetically, it's very refreshing compared to most low-budget films because I don't think they're thinking about the aesthetics, they're just trying to make this story. And Bujalski thinks well beyond that, but in a way, I think thinking beyond that was the detriment in the end, but for the most part he keeps that away from it to make a really interesting film. So if you have seen Computer Chess and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.